Hey, you are listening to the Coach's Locker Podcast with Chris Fore. This is episode 20. We reached it. I'm here with my son, Josiah. Josiah, tell him how old you are.
I'm 7 years old.
And you like talking a little more than your big brother does, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So, listen, Josiah, tell my coaches, my friends listening, what sports do you play?
I play soccer, and I'm going to do track in the spring.
And what else do you play in the winter?
I'm going to play basketball in the winter.
How many years have you played basketball?
2.
And how many years have you played soccer?
This is my first season.
No. Yeah, it is. You're right.
It's my first season.
Taylor played in the spring, not you.
Yeah.
And then track and field, how long have you done that?
I have not done track or field for 1 year yet.
You're going to do that this spring for the first time.
Yep.
So what are you going to be? Remember we talked about it the other day? How many sports are you playing?
I'm playing 3 sports.
So you're going to be a
3-season athlete.
High five. Yeah. And okay, tell me, why do you play sports?
Because I want to be a good athlete like my daddy and brother.
Oh, that's cool. You think your daddy's a good athlete?
Yeah.
Yeah? All right, awesome. Got him tricked, folks. And so, son, listen. I tell you, well, what's your favorite sport so far? You
soccer.
played basketball, you played soccer. Soccer?
Yeah.
Nice. Why do you like soccer?
Because it's just fun.
It's fun. What's fun about soccer?
You get to kick the ball out and try to win, and I'm 5-0 so far.
5-0?
Yeah.
Dude, you're on a good team.
I know.
What's the best player's name on your team?
Howie.
Howie is amazing, isn't he?
Yeah.
Why do you think Howie's so good?
Because he has been playing for 4 years.
He's been playing for 4 years?
Yep.
Holy smokes. So, dude, okay, so tell my listeners, tell my friends here. I tell you 2 things after every game, right? What are 2 things that I want you to know?
Play hard and have fun.
That's right. That's what sports are about, right?
Yeah.
Does Daddy ever say, you didn't do very good?
No.
No. Do you hear some parents out during the soccer game? Do you hear parents yelling?
Yes.
What do you hear them yelling?
Go team, go!
Go team, go?
Yes.
What else?
That's the only thing I mostly hear.
Are some parents crazy?
Yes.
Why? Why? What do you think? Why do you say that?
Because I get so excited, they scream when the son scores a goal.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Have you scored any goals this year?
I scored 2.
Nice. That's outstanding. All right, so son, tell the people. Say today we're gonna talk about your coaching portfolio.
Wait, what?
Say today we're gonna talk about your.
Today we are going to be talking about your coaching portfolio guide.
Okay. Son, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, now go sit over there and watch the game with your brother. All right, yeah, folks. Hey, that's my younger son, Josiah. Encourage all of you, if you have kids, I don't care what age they are, 6, 7, 15, encourage your kids to do 2 things, play hard and have fun. Today, Bill Vasko is joining me as a guest. He is a stud. He is a pro at coaching portfolios. He has built a website, coachingportfolio.com. Okay, and I'll tell you a little bit about Bill. He's a current head softball coach. Okay, he's a current head softball coach at the NCAA Division II level. Bill, the last 4 years, he's been at the Division I level at UMass Lowell in Massachusetts as an assistant softball coach. Before there, he was at Quinnipiac University in Connecticut as a Division I softball coach, and on down the line. So he, since 1992, he's been coaching football and softball at the high school Division III and Division I level now for softball. He's also spent some time as an athletic director at the high school level, and he spent some time as head softball strength and conditioning coordinator at the NCAA Division II level. So a wealth of experience, mainly in football and softball. And you'll hear his story, but years ago he started a website called the Coaching Portfolio Guide. That's at coachingportfolio.com. And I get a lot of questions about coaching portfolios, what you should put in those portfolios, how you should design those portfolios, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I send any of those emails I get, I refer everybody to Bill Vasko, okay? Now, you can find Coach Vasko on Twitter, okay? You can find him. He's got a website called mycoachbook.com that's also very good. You should check that out, okay? But his Twitter is just Coachbook. So it's at Coachbook, CoachBook. Again, that is Coachbook at Coachbook, CoachBook. You can also find him online at just at Coach Vasko. That's Vasko. Okay. So a couple ways to reach him on Twitter if you want to reach out to him that way. At Bill Vasko, Billvasko. But the most important thing here, check out coachingportfolio.com. Now, full honesty up front here. His website, it charges you a very small fee, $9.95. And folks, if you have not made a coaching portfolio, it's going to be worth all of that $9.95. He will also give you a free interview consultation, a 90-minute webinar that I'm a part of. And again, I really encourage you to check that out. I've had a lot of people want to push stuff to my clients, my coaching friends. Bill's not one of those guys who asked to come on. I asked Bill to come on here because I think he has something great for my audience, and I think that you'll like hearing from him about coaching portfolios. So enjoy this discussion.
Thanks for listening.
You are listening to the Coach's Locker Podcast with Chris Fore, a place for all coaches to call home. The Coach's Locker Podcast is a part of the Football Coaching Podcast Network. Please visit footballcoachingpodcast.com to hear and see our entire lineup of top football coaches coming to you every single podcast with valuable information to help you and your program. The Coach's Locker Podcast with Chris Fore exists to help prepare coaches to be hired for the job of their dreams and to provide coaches with dynamite resources to become even more successful in their field. You can reach me on Twitter at Coach Fore. That's at CoachFore. And my podcast home is at 8laces.org/podcast. That's 8laces, EIGHTLACES.org/podcast. Welcome to the Coach's Locker Podcast with Chris Fore. Now, let's get after it. Hands up, forget about the past, 'cause you and I's everything I ever asked for. Top down round the West Coast. Hey, Coach Vasko, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate you taking the time out of, I know what is a busy schedule for you, and so welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
So, Coach, you were telling me a little earlier, you've just taken a head softball coach job at Frostburg University and NC2A, coaching a little NC2A softball as a head coach now at Frostburg University in Frostburg, Maryland. How has that, are you done moving, or how's that looking right now?
Still in the process of moving. Tomorrow's my first official day, so it's a little bit of a late start into the school year, but I'm really super excited, and I know the kids are looking forward to getting started, so we're going to have our first practice on Friday and get as many in outside as we can before the weather changes, and then kind of move inside and transition to that. So I'm super excited about getting going now.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, I mean, Maryland's Frostburg, I'm sure it gets chilly there, huh?
Yeah, it's in the western part of Maryland, actually, just a little sliver of the state between West Virginia and PA, and it's in the mountains. So I know, it's been 70s and sunny this week, but starting on Friday, cold front's coming in. It's going to start hitting lows 30s overnight and highs in the 50s during the day as we start heading towards winter. So I'm missing out on the fall portion of the practice season, but we're in the transition from D3 to D2, so this is our last year as a D3 school. So we only have 16 practices in the fall, and we'll get those in before Christmas break, whether we're outside or inside, and kind of just mostly focusing on fundamentals and introducing my philosophies and concepts to the players and getting everybody on the same page.
So, Coach, I know you were a head coach. We went over your bio here a few minutes ago, but I know you were a head softball coach before at the NC2A, Division II level, and then you made that move to Division I as an assistant coach. So you've been at that NC2A Division I level for last 5 years here, and I get that question a lot. Is it better to be a head coach at a smaller level or an assistant coach at a bigger level? So I get that question all the time, about the football world, but I think a lot of the same principles apply no matter what sport you're coaching, again, it comes to me a lot, hey, should I stay on as a head coach at this, like Southern California, for instance, we've got 13 divisions of football. Hey, should I be a head coach at a Division 10 school? Or, I've also got an opportunity to go be an assistant coach at a Division 2 school. And there's not an answer. There's not a black and white answer to that. I always talk about, hey, what's your goal? Where do you want to be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? That should kind of direct the answer to that question. That's a really long question I'm setting up here, Coach, but how have you decided to make, those career moves yourself, coaching college softball?
Well, it kind of really depends upon what's important to you. And, things change over time. When I first started coaching, I've coached football, baseball, and softball. I've been at the high school level. I've been at D3, D2, D1. And I've always looked for, what is the next best opportunity for me to advance my career, both just professionally, financially, location-wise. So when I was a head coach, for example, when I became a head coach at the D2 level, I actually took a huge pay cut from my position as a teacher and athletic director at the high school level, which I gave up college coaching and went into teaching so that I could make money. But I realized that college coaching was what I wanted to do, and I was willing to take a pay cut to do it. Spent 3 years. It didn't turn out as I'd hoped. There were a lot of things I was unprepared for as a head coach at the college level. And I decided that I needed to go back and be an assistant under some people that I felt could help mentor me in some things on how to build a program and, really deal with team dynamics was the number one area where I felt I needed to improve my weaknesses. And I took a part-time job at the D1 level. So again, I wasn't making a lot of money, and it eventually led into a full-time position at the Division I level. So, there's a lot of benefits. There's a lot of pros, cons to both. I love working at the Division I level. The networking is unbelievable. The resources that you have, the larger budget, the traveling that you get to do for recruiting, the traveling that you do during the season. There's so many different things. And then coming back to a small school now that's transitioning from D3 to D2, the relationships are a lot more important. You have a lot closer bond with the people you work with the athletes that you work with, the other coaches. And to be honest, I had a really good job and made decent money as a D1 assistant at a mid-major. And now I'm a head coach at a school that's in its final year as D3, and I'm making a ton more money at that. And this is the most money I've ever made. So financially I'm doing well. And there's a lot of things I'm going to miss about D1. And, who knows? I'm not really worried about what's going to happen in the future. I'm going to do the best job I can at where I'm at right now. And whatever happens. And down the road, maybe I'll go back to D1. And, who's to say maybe I'll be a head coach at the Division I level sometime, or maybe I'll finish my career here at Frostburg. So, there's a lot of different factors you have to take into account. Obviously financially, what's going to give you the best opportunity to keep moving up professionally, and where do you want to be location-wise? And, the big thing, and when I talk to other coaches, when they have questions like this for me is, what's your family situation? Because that should be the number one priority in what you decide to do, because, I'm divorced and coaching is part of that reason. So, decisions that you have to make are going to affect your family, and that should be always the top priority.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Again, that you hit the nail on the head there. I've had that talks with guys, in their late 20s who aren't married and no kids, and I'm like, dude, not married, no kids, not many expenses, the money's not different. It's like, go coach the higher level, But yeah, so I think you covered a whole lot of bases there. As far as things that go into making that decision. So and you hit it at the end there. Maybe one day you'll be a Division I head coach. Are you to the point, like in your career? It kind of sounds, Coach, like you've been coaching college athletics, some high school athletics since 1992 here. Are you to the point where you would be satisfied, finishing your career at that Division II level, or do you really want to move up to Division I?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think all of us coaches always are looking for that final destination where we can kind of finish out our career. But then on the other hand, we're always looking to advance to the next best opportunity. So when I was really interested in this position because I had known about Frostburg and its reputation, and it was someplace that I thought, this could be a final destination for me. But in the back of your mind, you're always thinking, you want to win, you want to build your resume and everything while developing a great program. And, I'm not diminishing anything about, working with student athletes and helping them achieve their goals and graduate and become productive citizens. But, just in terms of professional, as a coach, I think we're always kind of look in the back of our minds, trying to build to go on to something bigger and better. But at the same time, like you said, it'd be nice to have that final destination, and I'm not really sure what it is. I want to be somewhere that has even warmer weather. I think that's my ultimate goal no matter what. But, right now I'm just trying to stay in the moment, enjoy the process right now. Whatever happens, happens. So I think I'm in a good spot where, so often you take a position, that financially and professionally, it's not where you want to be, and you're trying to grind a little bit just to move on. I don't think I have to worry about that so much now. I can let, things kind of take place however they turn out. We'll see.
Yeah. No, that's awesome that you're in that place. You can follow Coach Vasko on Twitter. His Twitter handle there is @CoachBook, @CoachBook. And the main reason, outside of talking about that new job, the job change, that wasn't the main reason I had Coach on tonight. Coach Vasko, since 2013, has started a portfolio website. Because I'm in the business with 8 Laces, 8laces.org consulting, business of helping with resumes and cover letters, the third question I get after those two, sometimes before those, are about portfolios. And, I have some opinions on portfolios. A lot of people ask me to look at them, or some coaches ask me to create them a portfolio. I don't know why in the world you would ever ask somebody else to create your portfolio, but how much would it cost to have you create a portfolio for me?
I've gotten that question several times myself.
Yeah. It's unbelievable, but there's nobody out there who knows more about coaching portfolios, in my opinion. I haven't ran across anybody else. And again, I've been in this line of helping coaches with their job search process for about the last 5-6 years. Nobody's doing that the way Coach Bill Vasko is. So the website, and again, this will be in the show notes, and we'll talk about it. I'll give it to you a few times here. It's very simple. coachingportfolio.com. Coaching, COACHING, portfolio, PORTFOLIO.com, coachingportfolio.com. And what Coach Vasko has put together is a really tremendous coaching portfolio guide. So I wanted him on here to discuss this as we're moving into, that season of resumes and cover letters and packages and portfolios as some of you guys are thinking about moving on. Some of you are to the stage in life where you're never going to put together a portfolio. Some of you are at a school you never ever want to leave. And so you might be turning off the podcast at this time. But please share this podcast with those younger guys or with those guys that are going to be wanting to move on. So that's why Coach Bill Vasko is here tonight. Again, follow him at Coach Book, CoachBook. Okay. And then his coaching portfolio website, again, coachingportfolio.com. So, Coach Vasko, would you tell me here, the coachingportfolio.com, your tagline, build a professional coaching portfolio and land your dream job today. Tell me about coachingportfolio.com.
Well, when I went back to school in the late 90s to finish up my teaching certification, one of the things that they had us do was develop a teaching portfolio with your lesson plans and things like that, all the things that you could take to a job interview to kind of demonstrate, what kind of things you would implement into the classroom. And I thought, the internet was still kind of new, so there wasn't a lot of resources out there, but I kind of came up with the idea that if I was going to interview for a coaching job, that I should have some of the things that I could show of, practice plans, drills, things that, I was going to do with the players, especially if I was going to be a head coach, what kind of things would I implement in terms of building a program, what were the program goals, how would we accomplish those goals, ideas for fundraising, just all of the things, when you sit down, especially when you become a head coach, you have a to-do list of all of the things that you need to do, but, you have to have some kind of direction in how you're going to implement all of those things. When I first started interviewing for full-time college coaching jobs, I was interviewing for some assistant jobs and head jobs. And my philosophy was, even if I was going to apply for an assistant job, I should still be able to demonstrate what my philosophies would be if I was a head coach. Because that should, if you want to be a successful assistant coach, I think you should always kind of have the mindset of thinking like a head coach. So I put together some things back then and started using that when I was interviewing for jobs. And then it ended up, I had used that a couple of times, and I was still kind of like working with some part-time positions. And then that's when I went and took a teaching position at the high school so I could make some real money, which I had a teaching portfolio as well. But then when I realized I wanted to get back into college coaching, I really sat down and focused on putting together a solid coaching portfolio, which led to my first head coaching job at the D2 school for softball. And it was during that time I'd always kind of been into web design, but that was when social networks started to come out, and I developed the Coach Book website, which is mycoachbook.com. And it was kind of just a resource for networking for coaches. And I developed an article series on what types of things you should include in a coaching portfolio. And within about a 2-year period, it had 10,000 views. And I kind of thought,
wow,
this was really the only thing on the whole website that people were actually looking at. And I thought, this must be something that other people were interested in. I kind of thought that coaching portfolios at the time were still relatively new, but, other people were kind of like trying to figure out what kind of advantage could they get in an interview and demonstrate, their knowledge and expertise. So I sat down and built another website and started putting together my thoughts and ideas, and had hundreds of hours in developing, kind of the layout of, like you said, it's not a site where you go in and it builds a coaching portfolio for you. It gives you ideas of different types of things you can include in a portfolio. And it doesn't have to be everything, but you can kind of pick and choose, gives examples of documents. We have sample portfolios that other coaches have submitted. That kind of shows what kind of things coaches are putting together, not only to prepare them for an interview for a coaching job, but also I kind of tell people when you develop your portfolio, it should be a staff manual that you're going to use once you get the job, and that you're also going to use to help train your staff in your ideas, concepts, and philosophies. which I think every good coach should do. I mean, the best coaches I've worked for kind of had like a manual that they handed out and said, here's how we're going to go as a college coach. This is how we're going to recruit. This is how we're going to implement our strength and conditioning program. This is how we're going to have an academic progress plan. These are our primary goals that we're going to have in each game for the entire season, offensive unit, defensive unit. So, I put together a lot of those ideas, and it's continued to grow, and I've continued to add new things as I've, looked at other coaches' portfolios and learned new things as well. And, every job that I've gotten on-campus interview for, I've taken a portfolio, and every single one where I've had an on-campus interview and took a portfolio, I've landed the job. So I think that's 4 in a row for me now. And, the one that I took to Frostburg, I totally redid it in the week leading up to the on-campus interview with some new thoughts and ideas that I had about developing team culture and team standards, which were some of the things that I thought that I didn't do a very good job with at my last head job. And I feel like not only did that help me get the job, but it's also prepared me for how I'm going to approach building the program as I take over, here at Frostburg with this team. And I'm really excited about that part. So it's something that's organic and continues to grow as, coaches come up with new ideas and with, the things you can do. I've kind of gone from developing my portfolio in Microsoft Word to using PowerPoint now, which gives you the flexibility of adding a lot of graphics and charts and, just a lot of different ways to do layouts and everything. So it's not something that's static. It's a process that continues to grow, and it's even led to the point where, like I have my portfolio, a condensed version as a website online, as a digital portfolio that I can send to prospective employers when I send out an email after I apply. So there's a lot of varieties of ways that you can approach building a portfolio now, instead of just the old paper version in a binder that you hand out once you meet the interviewing committee. So that's kind of it in a little bit in a nutshell. I'm sure there's some questions regarding all of that, but
yeah. And so the idea on your website, coachingportfolio.com, you have a site on here, and anybody can see this. So you've listed a whole bunch of sections and sample documents. And so when I, as a coach, when I get on here, I'm going to pay $9.95. That's nothing, in my opinion. $9.95, a one-time payment. Okay, coaches, you're going to receive unlimited access to all documents, templates, articles, and sample portfolios, plus all future updates. And so, Coach, let's talk a little bit about, for instance, coaching experience and highlights. That a lot is going to end up on your resume. But talk to me about that section of a portfolio and what you advise, the coaching experience and highlights.
Well, I mean, you and I have both had some discussions in the past, and I know that you always advise coaches that when they build their resume, that instead of listing duties, they should focus more on their accomplishments and achievements, the highlights in their career in terms of, the groups of players that they coach, whether it's at their specific position or the team that they worked with. And especially, a question that I get a lot, and I've been in the position myself, is, coaches will ask, well, what types of things would I include in that section if I've been a part of a very bad program? I mean, There's always ways to demonstrate success. It doesn't have to be strictly related to wins and losses. I mean, if your position group has improved over a period of time, depending upon what sport you're coaching, for example, if you're coaching running backs in football and, your position over 3 years has improved yards per carry or decreased in, fumbles. There's a variety of ways you can track success. It can be off the field or off the court types of success programs that you've built, maybe character building programs, academic achievements, and things like that. So what I try to do in the portfolio is just kind of summarize where I've coached and what those highlights and achievements are, to kind of show progression, especially at places where I've been for several years, to kind of show how things have improved while I've been there. Because pretty much every program I've been a part of, we've had some type of improvement, whether it's been statistically or in terms of wins. And then again, other things, programs that we've implemented off the field to work with our players to, help them be better student athletes and better citizens in our society. So it's kind of just a summary of those things that, like when you talk about what you want to see on a resume, not just responsibilities, it's kind of just a way in the portfolio to summarize those achievements and accomplishments.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. On your portfolio, on your resume, you do want to keep that, you do want to keep that brief, those bullet points. But like you said, I do the same thing in my portfolio. I spell that out more on in the actual portfolio. Coach, I'm not going to go through every one of these sections. I would love to talk about. I could talk about this for 3 or 4 hours, but I know not all the listeners necessarily want to hear that. But I do want to go over some of these different sections that you have. So when a coach buys into this website, the one-time payment of $9.95 at coachingportfolio.com, they're going to get 250 pages of information, which is an incredible amount of information. So can you tell me a little bit, like under the player expectations section, what will they find there?
So, for example, one of the things that try to accomplish with that section is, what are your expectations in terms of when you're developing your players? And, one of the things that I've learned in terms of standards, expectations is getting buy-in from your student athletes and also from your coaching staff as well. And developing kind of the culture that will help get that buy-in. So when you have like the expectations part, again, whether you're dealing with student athletes or the coaches, is talking to them about, involving them in the process more. So coming up with different ways to involve them in the process, and then also demonstrating and leading by example. Because I think too often as coaches, we stand up in front of our players, our coaches, and we talk about, this is the way we're going to do things, and this is why, or, maybe we sometimes don't even talk about the why. And I'm guilty of this as well, talking too much about it and not demonstrating or leading by example. And I've done a lot of reading these past few weeks over some different ways of getting buy-in and developing a culture and setting team expectations and team standards for everybody that's involved in your program. And that's everybody, whether it's players, coaches, managers, trainers, setting the standards and the expectations, but not only talking about them, making sure that they're displayed and reinforced over and over. And if somebody's not meeting the expectations, that we're trying to deal with that issue as quickly as possible and resolve that issue. And then again, making sure that everybody doesn't just talk about it, but they display it and are constantly believing it and demonstrating it over and over with each other. So, that's one thing. I look back at some of the documents that are included in the coaching portfolio guide, and some of the things that are in there are things that, I first developed probably over 15 years ago that, to me, when I look at them now, are pretty rudimentary compared to some of the things I include in my portfolio now. And it's impossible for me to continually update every little thing, but it kind of gives people some ideas. And it's interesting to see, because when I ask people to share their sample portfolios with me so that I can include them on the website, I see that they've kind of looked at some of my documents and took those ideas and then kind of branched out into their own areas. And it's really cool, like, to see. I'm like, okay, I know what page they were looking at when they developed that, but that's really cool the way they kind of took off and went on a different tangent with that and developed it on their own. And I'm like, okay, now I kind of want to do that with my own. So it keeps developing and spurring new ideas. So I know some of those things like player expectations, probably like in the coaching portfolio guide, is pretty basic. Like I said, that was one of the areas in my portfolio that I just updated recently, that if you looked at my portfolio now and I showed you the page where it started as player or staff expectations, it's completely different now and full of tons of other information on how I plan to accomplish that with my team. And again, your portfolio is not just selling you to get the job. It's also preparing you for the job. That's what I try to tell people. That's one reason that you need a portfolio, not just for the interview, but to prepare yourself to be in the position that you're interviewing for.
I never actually thought about it that way. Be honest with you, I never thought about, what I've done that. I've certainly done that. I've gone into my first coaches meeting with a brand new staff, and I Xeroxed off, down at Staples. I made copies of my entire portfolio, and that was my starting point. But I think you're right, and I think a lot of coaches fail to do that. They fail to take that as their launching point in that new job. And so each of these sections, as we kind of look through them, team policies, player code of conduct, parents and media relations, philosophy on playing time, responsibilities of the head coach, responsibilities of assistant coach. So you're basically, that one-time payment they're making, you're giving them access to 250 pages of information to kind of show them what a good portfolio looks like, to give them ideas of what a good portfolio looks like, correct?
Yeah. And, the other thing I wanted to say was that, like you said, you kind of use it as a launching point. The portfolio that I just created, I'm having my first staff meeting with my staff tomorrow, and I'm pulling out the exact portfolio that I handed out at the interview process and going to be covering things in that. So, I think that's really important, that when people put this stuff together, that they really, introspectively think about how they would operate their program, because that's how it's going to pay off for them. Not just in terms of, developing their thoughts and ideas, but when you go into the interview process, you're so much more confident because you've sat down and really thought about those things. And like you said at the beginning,
absolutely,
people want you to build a portfolio for them. Well, how would you go into an interview and present that portfolio and back up everything that's in that? So I just think that's important. I spent so much time for this last job updating my portfolio, and all of the time that I spent thinking about those things that I included in that, helped prepare me for all of the questions I faced throughout an 8-hour interview with all of the different people that I met, the players, coaches from other teams, the athletic directors, people from admissions. There was just, and, obviously you can't include everything in the portfolio. You've got to pick out the things that are most important. And I think this is another thing that's really important when you go into an interview. It's especially true when you're interviewing for a high school job. This is another thing you and I've talked about is, you got to do some research about the school district and the community that you're interviewing in, what types of things are important. If you're going into a school that has a lot of resources and is fairly wealthy, fundraising might not be a priority. But if you're going into a school district that doesn't have a lot of funds and doesn't have a way to purchase new uniforms on a regular basis, fundraising is probably going to be pretty important, and that's something that you should include in the portfolio. So you kind of got to pick what things are going to be important, what things you think you're going to have questions about from the interviewing committee, and make sure those are the things that you're included in the portfolio.
I think that's wise, very, very wise advice on knowing that community. Coach, what are some of the better portfolios you've seen? What were some of the things included in those?
I think one of the things that stands out obviously right away, especially these days, like I mentioned before, with the advances in all of the ways that we can do things digitally, are just things that, that are eye-catching in terms of layouts, including a lot of graphics. And it looks very professional and neat. That stands out. But also using infographics, I think, is a really neat way to demonstrate things, especially like we talked about showing achievements and accomplishments and highlights. Well, if there are ways that you can demonstrate that instead of just a text entry that is bullet pointed, but having some type of infographic that, maybe shows over a 5-year period how something improved in that, doing it in an eye-catching visual way, really stands out. And again, I think when you do it that way, when your layout is professional and neat and shows that you took a lot of time to put it together, again, to me, that's showing the interview committee that, you're very diligent and you pay attention to details, and that this is really important to you. Where, these days, if you go in with a 3-hole punch binder with some pages in there and you've just got some things typed up and there's typos and things like that, to me, that's not going to stand out at all. I mean, you're competing against other people for the job, but you kind of got to sit and think, what's going to make you stand out. Obviously, the knowledge that you have and the expertise you have should be the number one thing that separates you. But, the portfolio, when done right, will make that stand out, make your knowledge and expertise stand out even more above the other candidates.
And I know you're saying that from a place not only as a coach, but as we shared earlier, background-wise, you've been a high school athletic director. I've been a high school athletic director. When I'm looking through, literally the last time I hired a boys basketball coach, I had 105 applicants for a boys basketball job here in Southern California. As I'm going through that stuff, one of the guys absolutely jumped off the page with his portfolio. You mentioned earlier, and I stole it from this gentleman, you do your portfolio now in a PowerPoint format. And that's a great piece of advice. I changed literally that night when I saw this guy's portfolio. I changed my entire portfolio, and I created it in PowerPoint because then you can save it as a PDF. And, now you can attach that. And so, and the thing that stood out to me in that portfolio he made is a thing that sticks out to a lot of people. People want to see 3 things. They want to see people, meaning pictures, visual pictures. People want to see people, action, and results. If you think about any favorite sports website you go to, the sports magazine, like if you get Sports Illustrated, we love to see, as human beings, we love to see people, action, and results. Action in words or pictures. But this guy had a lot of pictures in there of himself with kids. And I could tell just in those pictures, these are still pictures over like a 10-year period of him with kids coaching. I could tell that he had care and concern for kids. And those things really stuck out to me, So that's, I guess, part of the answer to my question of what makes a portfolio good. Like you said, and then I had a guy, a poor guy. I laughed thinking about it. This guy sent me a portfolio one time, and I don't know. I mean, I shouldn't laugh real hard. The poor guy might have had some learning disabilities or something. I don't really think so. But I mean, I counted him with an assistant coach of mine. First of all, I was the athletic director and the head football coach, and we had a horrible 0-10 season. Well, this dude didn't even put in enough effort to figure out who the head coach was at the school. So he sent me, the athletic director, an email and then a package telling me why I should fire the head football coach, who was myself. And it's one of my favorite stories. But this portfolio was so god awful. I actually called the guy and I said, "Did you know who the head coach was here?" And he says, "No, but I'm sure you're making a change." And I said, "Well, I'm not making a change, and here's why." I explained that it was me, but then I went on to tell him, like, "Dude, your portfolio, you need to fix it because it had 135 misspelled words in about 40 pages." And I mean, it was so bad. I said to myself, this guy's totally uneducated, Why would you hire a guy like this, right? So I think and there's no reason for it because it was a Word document. It was a just black and white Word document he sent to me. And so he could have, Microsoft Word spell check that bad boy. But so we talked a little bit about, what are making some good. How about the bad side, Coach? I just shared one, but I know you've probably seen some that you're just going like, yikes, you better not send this out. What are some of the bad things you've seen on portfolios?
Well, because I do get a lot of sample portfolios, I do see people who, and I have a lot of sample documents and a lot of sample portfolios. I see people a lot of times, because we have I think we're over like 1,700 members now that have signed up on the website over the past 5 years. So we've had a lot of tremendous support on the website. But I see people who will just take documents and not change them, basically just copy and paste word for word and add it to their portfolio. So, again, I mean, I think looking at a lot of the documents that I've included that are several years old now, they're kind of rudimentary to me. So like if things are pretty basic and plain, to me, it doesn't seem like you put a lot of thought and process. And I guess it depends upon, the level of coaching position that you're applying for. I just think there are so many resources available out there to us today with the internet that, if we're going to sit down and come up with some concepts and ideas and philosophies on things, that we can do better than just a 2-paragraph coaching philosophy, or just listing some generic program goals, or not even putting any thought into it and just copy and pasting something that somebody else did. So, I mean, obviously, because I run the site and I see a lot of portfolios, I know when somebody's copying and pasting something, because I've seen so many of them.
Yeah, you've seen it out there a bunch, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, as you and I that have been in the business so long and been in athletic director positions, or, now as a college coach and getting recruiting emails, you can tell when somebody's giving you something that is canned spam, that they just copy and paste and is not original, doesn't have a lot of original thought to it.
Yeah.
So I think that's the number one thing, is just, not putting a lot of effort into it. And again, go back to people who want somebody else to build a portfolio to them. That tells me right then and there that they, that's a red flag to me, that I'm thinking already that that's somebody that I would never want to hire, just based upon they're too lazy to even sit down and think about it on their own. So, just going through a portfolio, we can tell there's not a lot of effort and thought put into it. And, that stands out as much as a really well done professional portfolio.
Yeah, I agree. Full agreement there. What about this? Because I get this question a lot, Coach. I'm sure you do too. What advice do you give to coaches about taking the portfolio into the interview room? I'd like to hear you address that.
Well, a couple of thoughts on this. And one thing I just wanted to touch on quickly, to go back to the PowerPoint, because some coaches will ask, well, isn't PowerPoint meant to be like a slide, visual that you use, in a classroom, which is true. And you could actually, some coaches I've seen have actually used PowerPoint in that format to kind of put together a slide presentation of their portfolio that they can send out digitally that way. And there's not a problem with that. Like you said, though, you can save it as a PDF. So the thing I like most about PowerPoint, and I think you can accomplish the same thing with Microsoft Publisher, but for some reason, Publisher it doesn't seem to be as easy to use. I love PowerPoint because you can move things around really easily, where if you're using Microsoft Word, you're kind of stuck within the parameters of the layout. So That's why I encourage people to use PowerPoint, is just the ability to move things around and get a really nice looking layout. But what I do, a couple of different ways that you can approach this. I encourage people that after they apply for a position, for positions that they're really interested in, that they follow up with an introductory email, and then they include a PDF of their portfolio, a condensed version of their portfolio, so that the person can just open it up and kind of look through that. And that's one way that they can stand out and be a little bit more memorable. And as I mentioned earlier, I actually have a digital copy of mine. So instead of sending a PDF, I include the link to my website that has my portfolio information on my website. And then in terms of when it comes to the actual interview process, for example, this past interview, I went to Staples and I spent $100 on 10 copies of my portfolio. I managed to get my portfolio. I wanted it to be a little bit smaller and condensed. It was 20 pages. So it was spiral bound with plastic cover, clear on the front with, a nice page put together with the school's logo and everything. So, like I said, $100 for 10 copies, and I was able to keep copy for myself so that I could use that as my staff manual. And I just handed it out as I approached each group or person throughout the day just to give them something. And, I told them that there were probably some things in there that we would cover, but, I wanted everybody, like I said, even the person in admissions, I gave them a copy because it had information about, how I approached recruiting and things like that. So I just gave everybody a copy and kind of handled it in that manner.
Yeah. I definitely do the same thing. I advise the same thing. You want to take a copy in. I tell people to know how many people are going to be in the room. That's a really good idea for a lot of things. We'll get into that in another podcast about interviewing. But have one for each person in that room if you're able to. Coach, I noticed something. Shoot, one time I went out to interview maybe a year and a half ago for an admin job. And I kind of am thinking more deeply about this. I don't know if there's a definite answer, but one of the people in the room, they liked the portfolio I gave them. I think so much they just kept their nose in it, and I could tell they really weren't engaged with my interview. And so I've always walked in and passed those out first, but as I sat there and then reflected afterwards, I think I lost that person in the interview because they were reading my portfolio the entire time. Have you ever experienced that, or what do you think about that?
I think it depends. The last few interviews that I've been in were ones where I kind of like rotated throughout the day, or where I first came in and kind of met the main person, and then maybe went on to a couple of other meetings before I came in front of the whole committee. So
yeah.
Like if you know that you're going to meet with someone before you meet with the entire committee, like for example, when I met with the main person, I gave him like 5 copies and said, hey, here's something I want to make sure that the main people who are going to be interviewing me have a chance to look at this, and I would like for them to be able to maybe look at it ahead of time before I meet with them, so that they can kind of go through, and then if they have any questions or anything, if you can get it in front of them before, I think that would be best. But obviously, to avoid kind of like if you're going straight in and it's just a committee right off the bat, maybe you kind of have it there and lay it out and talk about what it is, but don't hand it out so that they're a little more focused on you. I think if there's a way that you can get it in front of them before the actual interview process, that's probably the best way to go if it's possible.
Love it. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I sat there going, lady, look over here. I'm talking. So I maybe it's a strategy of hers too. I don't know. But Coach, what have we not? We've covered a lot of material here in regards to the portfolio. I'm glad you joined us. Again, coachingportfolio.com. Folks, it's the best $9.95 you'll spend in regards to this portfolio aspect of getting your next job. So I encourage you to check that out. Again, 250 pages of information. I just really believe in it. I'm not hosting anybody on my podcast that are paying me to do it. I've had some people want to pay me to come on to do a show because they know my audience, they know who I'm talking to. I refuse to do that. And Coach, I invited him on here. He's not giving me a cut of any sales or anything like that. That's not why I do this podcast. But I do promote things I believe in. I promote things that I think are going to help my audience and my coaching friends here. So definitely got to check this out. There are a lot. You could type in coaching portfolio and get find a lot of stuff online. You could probably find some to copy or whatever. But this website is top notch in my opinion. So check it out. He also, as he mentioned earlier, Coach Vasko has done a really good job with his other website, mycoachbook.com. Again, check that out, mycoachbook.com. And I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, Coach, you started a pretty cool job posting on there. Can you tell us about that on mycoachbook.com?
I don't know how cool it is, but I spent a lot of time developing an RSS feed system that kind of sorts through, and I'm still constantly tweaking it. I still see that there's a lot of duplicates that pop up, and I eventually created a Twitter that will post it, and the one I'm using now limits it to 100 a day. It's shocking to me that there are over 100 posts a day on different types of coaching jobs, but I've tried to just take in as many different resources as possible. I know a lot of people do a really good job of running some job posting sites, and obviously it's impossible to in one area have every single job posting that's out there, but I've tried to get as many as possible so that people can kind of go through, and I use it myself. I mean, I still go to the individual sites, but on a every morning basis, I'll go through the feed myself just to see what's out there. And especially, it's shocking to me how many high school jobs, especially, and even some college jobs that don't make it to like the NCAA site or the higher ed site, that are just like on Indeed.com or Monster.com. I'm not sure why they don't ever make it to what would be considered the site for that particular profession. But I mean, so I'm able to get in a variety of feeds in there that show a variety of jobs. And, obviously, again, there are so many different places you can check for jobs that even mine, as many as it has, isn't just the sole one, but I think it does a pretty good job of picking up maybe some obscure jobs that you don't see other places.
Yeah. And again, that is mycoachbook.com. Also, there's a lot of articles, and it's another great resource to bookmark and check that out. And you can get right there through coachingportfolio.com. Coach, biggest takeaway, most important piece of advice for coaches in regards to their coaching portfolio in 30 seconds is what?
Well, I don't know if I have the biggest takeaway, but there's, first off, I really wanted to thank you for having me on. And I think it's so important just getting the info out there to coaches so that they know that it's out there. That's probably the biggest takeaway. And, for $10, I'm not trying to make a ton of money. Like I said, we've got about 1,700 people that have signed up in 5 years. So I'm not making a bunch of money. And it was originally when I built it, I took that part-time coaching job when I went to the D1 level, and I needed money at the time, and it was a way for me to figure out what knowledge do I have that I can pass on and make a little bit of money, and it turned out to be pretty popular, and I love helping coaches in whatever way I can. That's why I try to keep it affordable, and I just think, it's a way for me to give back to the coaching community. One other thing I wanted to add was I talked a little bit about building a digital portfolio as a website, and I've built some for other coaches, but it's so time consuming, and my costs for a hosting platform and domain and everything, it makes it kind of pricey. So I've been working on a tutorial to kind of show coaches how they can take their portfolio and build their own website. There are a lot of really easy ways out there now that coaches can build a website fairly easily and for not too much money, and put their portfolio on a website. And, to me, I think it's a great way, again, to stand out from other candidates because you're doing something a little bit different. And then in today's day and age of social media, it's just a kind of a really good way to market and brand yourself too. I think we should all take a little bit of time and invest in ourselves and promote ourselves and the things that we're doing. And a website portfolio is a great way to do that. So I'm working on that tutorial now, and I'm hoping to have it up here in the next month or so, and it'll be another resource on the coaching portfolio website that'll be absolutely free to all of the people who sign up. I mean, not free, they're paying the $10, but it's not something I'm going to charge extra for. So once I get that added on there, it'll be another way that they can enhance their portfolio or do something a little bit different.
Love it. I think that's a great idea. In fact, when I was fired in 2011, that's exactly what I did. That's how my own online business started. That's the whole way my side business and doing this started. CoachFore.org. It was going to be 10 simple pages to try to help me get a new job. 10 pages to help me get a new job. That's how that thing started. And I've now written over 700 articles. And it's taken me, to a lot of cool places. So, definitely in this day and age, a coach should have a website that he can, and I loved it. I mean, when I was going through that process of trying to find a new job, I would just send that right over. Here's my coaching philosophy. I'd put a link in an email to a principal or an AD. Here's my coaching philosophy, my link. Here's my first parent meeting, a link. And so it was real easy for them to navigate and look through it. And then, I just started a job as an assistant principal this past summer. And obviously, it's just one part of my job there is athletic director. Supervising the athletic director. I'm not the AD there, but athletics is under me. And so the principal was interested in, he commented on my website and the writing that I've done there. So it definitely helps you to stand out in the crowd. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that, Coach, what you put together there as an added resource. So, Bill, thank you.
Yeah, and I don't mean to belabor things and drag this out, but I think, a lot of coaches, they have so many great ideas and a lot of knowledge that, like yourself, there are different products that you developed that have helped so many coaches out that, whether it's, as a football coach, if you've got a certain, wristband system or play card sheet or whatever, if you come up with something new. I've seen so many coaches come up with great ideas. If you have a website and you can put that on there, just like I developed the coaching portfolio guide. It was an idea I had and nobody else was really doing it. And, it helped make a little bit of extra money and it's helped me network and everything. I just think it's a way coaches can get their knowledge out there and, share with the coaching community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Coach, thank you for your time. I didn't mean to take this much of it up, but I think this was a great discussion, and I know that it's going to help coaches in the future. So thank you.
Thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
And now we're going to check in with Coach Butler from Trinity International University. Coach Butler has been joining us. He's the head football coach there in his first year, and so he's going to join us now to talk about their game this past week. And we're going to get into talking a little bit about how they work on special teams and just what they're going through as a football program. Kind of struggling this year, sitting at 1-6. But I want you to hear now from Coach Butler for just a few minutes. And again, thank you for joining us here on the Coach's Locker podcast. All right, we're back. We're here with Coach Lamont Butler, head football coach at Trinity International University. Again, we are following Coach Butler this year as he progresses through the first year as a head coach at the collegiate level. Coach, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate you taking a little time out of your day.
Appreciate you having me.
So, Coach, looked up here. Looks like you guys dropped one yesterday against St. Xavier. Lost here at home. So, how's everything going today for you guys in the building?
Yeah, we just got done watching special teams as a staff, getting ready in a few minutes here to go to watch the game offensively and defensively. So we'll split up on each side of the ball, and just watch the film, evaluate it, grade it, those types of things.
Yeah. So, Coach, talk us through that a little bit. Special teams wise, you guys have just broken down that film. You said, how do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Explain the process you guys use there at Trinity.
So we just watch it as a staff. We watch it, because that's one thing that everyone on our staff has a hand in. And so we just, watch the game. We talk through either coaching points that were made throughout the week that either did or did not happen during the game. And then also we see the things that we have to fix. And then also that allows, other coaches who may see some things that need to be fixed or corrected that, the coach who oversees that position, or not position group, but that special team, they might see something that, we could do better or something like that. And so, we also have that time where we can help each other out as well.
Yeah. So how do you divide that up? How does your staff divide up your special teams, Coach?
So our D-line coach, he's responsible for field goal block, PAT field goal block. Our O-line coach does field goal. Our offensive coordinator, he's responsible for kickoff return. Our running backs, tight ends coach does punt return. Our DBs coach, he's responsible for kickoff, and then I do punt.
All right.
And obviously the onside kick and hands team that goes along with the kickoff and kickoff return.
Yeah. So how did you guys divide that all up? Did you just put it on the board and say, hey, who wants to do what, or how did you guys go about that?
Yeah. So we talked about it. We had a meeting about it, and our O-line coach, he did the field goal last year. So obviously that was it's just, all right, you're going to keep field goal. And then, for me last year, I did kickoff and field goal block. But being the head coach, I kind of wanted to, have my hand in what I think is the most important one is punt.
Yeah.
And so I decided to do punt and oversee that one. And then, kickoff, you gotta deal with running and block shedding. And so, defensive guy, and then punt return, obviously offense is blocking a little bit. And so put an offensive guy there. And if they didn't have any familiarity with the special team, then we talked about, we talked through it, and our OC, he had done kickoff return at a previous school, and so he was he wanted to do that as well. So we just kind of divvied it up to if a person knew what they were doing and they wanted to do it, then they got it, and then everyone else, it was every man for themselves after that. If you didn't want it, but now you just got to do it. So.
Yeah. Coach, have you had to remove anybody from a special team in the middle of the year? Like they're just not doing their job?
Yes.
Coaching wise?
Yep. Oh, coaching wise?
Yeah.
No, not yet, no.
No, okay.
Does you mean players? Not yet. Coaching wise, no.
Yeah. That would be a real headache.
I think the model that we go by when we watch it as a staff, and just being able to review it together and then look at certain things, and they can ask questions as well, like, hey, coach, is this guy supposed to do this on this one? Or, and then we can talk through that as well. And then, that helps everyone, get a understanding of what that special team is. And then all the coaches help in some way, shape, or form on another special team. So it's not like, you got your unit and then you're coaching the entire unit. Everyone has their, little responsibility that they're responsible for on each special team.
And so how long do you guys spend breaking that down on the day after a game like today?
We're about 30 to 45 minutes as a staff. Like, we kind of roll through it, but then we talk about each of the special teams, and what went wrong, what could go better, and or what we did good, and so about 30 to 45 minutes.
And do you talk much personnel during that meeting too, or do you save that for moving forward, or do you save that for another meeting?
We'll look at if we need to put someone else in there, or I know it was I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago where we kind of had not an overhaul, but we changed our personnel on a few of the special teams just because some guys weren't getting it done. So we were able to we talked about that and what who needed to be where on that special team, and that also gave us if a guy knows, this guy would be perfect for it, it may be a guy in their position group that another coach may not know too much about.
Coach, I think we've talked about it before. I've coached just 1 year at the collegiate level, the JC level.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that I got hired there was just having decent amount of success around the high school level, and the head coach I worked for here in our community had come out, he'd seen us at games, and he'd seen the results of our special teams. And one of the first things he said was, you're going to have to motivate these kids because nobody wants to play special teams here at our, at the junior college. So I'm sure you've got a little bit, I've talked with college coaches for a long time about that issue. Do you have that issue there with you guys at Trinity?
I think, for us, because we're kind of changing the culture and how we do things. And so I know previously, like starters weren't required to be on special teams, just because they were deemed they needed their rest for offense or defense. And, I got kind of a different mindset with that. Whereas, if you're going to help us win the football game, whether you're a starter or not, everyone needs to be on special teams. And so, there's the only untouchable guy on a special team for me would be a quarterback. So that's the only rule. So we have starters on our special teams, but then also, we got young guys who, they're, who are showing some, signs of improvement, or they're doing a really good job and they're out there as well. But, no one's, I'm not a guy that wants, that says, all right, you're a starter, and you don't have to do special teams. Special teams is very, very important to the game. And I've seen, where games change. I think back to one of our games this year, we're down 14, I think it was 14 or 21 points. And we just got a defensive stop, and we're on punt return, and we get one of our players tries to jump over the shield, which is illegal, and defense has to go right back out on the field. After we were struggling a little bit, and so that was a good thing to get off the field, get the offensive ball back. Offense was moving the ball, and then the defense has to go right back out there because of that. And so I think when you have guys who, most teams will try to put younger guys or, guys who aren't really playing. And when you do that, I think you open yourself up to, those types of mistakes where a guy may not know, or a guy, trying to do too much and, not, just not being, aware. And then those type of things happen. So I just try to get, the most out of all of our guys. And, if a starter is going to help us on special teams, he's going to play special teams.
How does that look in the rest of your conference, Coach? Is everybody kind of have that same philosophy? I'm sure it differs school to school,
yeah.
But are you seeing a lot of starters play special teams?
Yeah, I think a lot of the starters in our conference on other teams, they're definitely on special teams, and I try to point that out to some of our guys, because I know some of our older guys, they're not used to that way because of how it was previously, and so
yeah.
That's a good example to show them, other teams have their guys on here because it's important, So,
have you had a tough time changing that philosophy with your kids? Have you had to sit some down and say, "Hey, man, you have got to play the special team"? Yeah. How do you handle those conversations?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's not what's best for you. It's what's best for the team, and. You just try to have that mindset with those guys, and hopefully they see that. And hopefully, it opens them up to seeing, man, maybe I am being a little bit, selfish. Maybe if I'm thinking only about, myself and the rest that I'm going to accrue if I don't do special teams, rather than, helping my team out and, being where I need to be at on a special team, and, helping the team out rather than worrying about how I feel about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Coach, yesterday's game, I think you guys went down pretty early. Looks like halftime, 3-1 after his first quarter, then halftime down 24-3. You guys got a field goal there.
Yep.
Talk to us a little bit about yesterday's offensive. Looks like some offensive struggles early on.
Yeah. So we moved the ball. We moved the ball well.
Red zone issues.
We just didn't finish drives.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just didn't finish drives, and, you can have all the yards in the world, but if you don't score points, it doesn't matter. So, we've been having some issues on defense, and so we elected, or they won the toss, but we were gonna see if we won the toss anyway. So, we got the ball down. So I think the 20, stalled out in the red zone, missed a field goal. They drove down. They got into our red zone. Actually, they got that down to the 5-yard line. They had a holding penalty, took them back to the 15. And then they stalled out, and so they had to kick a field goal. Which, that for us, that was, that was a win for us in that sense, because we've been having some struggles in the red zone, both offensively and defensively. So we got out that situation with just a field goal instead of a touchdown, which is good. And so, offense went down again, drove the ball, and then we had to punt it. Ended up punting. We had a few drives. Defense got off the field and, forced them to kick. I think we had 3 or 4 punts inside the 20. which was really good. And two of those they started on like the 1 or 2 yard line.
Nice.
So, yeah, that was really good. And so we got to those situations, and then we had it was rough. We got a targeting penalty like in the second quarter.
Oh.
Yeah, they went down. I think they scored. It was 10-0, and then we went down, got a targeting penalty, and then they scored. So it was 17-0. I think we went down, drove, kicked the field goal, 17-3, and then they went down again, scored right before half, 24-3 at halftime. And it was talking to the guys at halftime. Hey, defensively, we didn't give up a ton, but we gave a few big plays. And there were some that we put ourselves in bad situations or whatever. And so, we just had to continue to, we were doing pretty well defensively.
Okay.
And then we come out on defense, get a 3-and-out to start the half, and then pick six.
Oh.
So then, so the pick six, and then we went out again. I'm trying to think of what else happened. I think we turned the ball over again. I think it was a tip ball and an interception. They took down to I think it was like the 5-yard line, and they scored on the next play. And then they got another interception in the end zone. We drove all the way down we got down to like the 10 or 15-yard line. And then we threw an interception in the end zone. And then they went down and scored again, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, those turnovers.
Just not. Yep. Yeah. Turnovers, not finishing drives, and then defensively giving up big plays. And then we let another punt get out. It didn't score, but it set up some bad field position for us defensively. So yeah. So just got to keep coaching through it. I think it was the best game in terms of we saw some young guys step in, and they performed well. They got they're getting better, and so we just got to continue to get better and continue to to work.
Yeah, it sounds like I was talking yesterday, Coach, with a coach out here in Southern California, high school level, first year, trying to turn things around, and he's facing some of the same exact issues where they're having a tough time, finishing drives, they're having too many turnovers, and it's hurting. Those two things right there, not finishing drives in the red zone and then turnovers. I mean, it's very similar to what he's having to change, a program that's won, I think, 2 or 3 games the last 2 years. And it just we kind of talked through that. It's just a little bit of that immaturity and just not having, not being used to winning and finding success at the end of a drive, right? I mean, it sounds like that's kind of stuff you're facing too.
Yeah, I think so. Our offense, they've moved the ball well all year. We just haven't finished in the red zone. And I think defensively, this is probably our best all-around game in terms of, getting off the field. Like, our third down percentage has been, really bad, over the course of the year. And I think they were like 3 of 16, I think, on third down Saturday. So, which was good. We were getting off the field. But, again, big plays come back and get you.
Yeah. Well, up next, Coach, you guys are heading to Robert Morris University. Looks like those guys are a little down right now too, 1-6.
Uh-huh.
So how you feel about this upcoming game over there?
Yeah, I think it'll be a good one. I mean, Robert Morris, traditionally they're a really good team in terms of their pro style offense, so they're going to run the football well. They got nice looking kids, for their offense, and so for us it's going to be how well we control the line of scrimmage and. Again, finishing those drives and then, not turning the ball over and then also, defensively getting turnovers.
And how far is that? How far you guys got to travel over there to?
It's not too far. It's about 45 minutes away.
Okay. Yeah, not too far.
Yeah.
All right, Coach. Well, hey, good luck to you guys as you prepare this week for Robert Morris, and Hope you guys are able to pull out a win over there on the road. And looks like it's homecoming, Coach. Homecoming out there for Auburn Morris.
Yeah, so we got to make sure we spoil it for them.
There you go. All right, Coach. Well, hey, thanks again for your time. I really appreciate it. Folks, you can follow Coach Butler on Twitter, again, at Coach Butler, CoachButlerTiu. Coach Butler, TIU. Hit him up on Twitter. Definitely, especially if you've got some kids who can play at that next level. And, Coach, again, thank you for your time.
Yeah, appreciate it.
And that wraps up the 20th edition of the Coach's Locker podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you've gained some great wisdom and insight here about the coaching portfolio. I hope that you have enjoyed your time spent with us. And again, check out coachingportfolio.com. Hey, if you like podcasts, if you like this podcast, you'll definitely like the rest of the podcasts we have. Check us out at footballcoachingpodcast.com. Again, that's footballcoachingpodcast.com. Until next time, we'll see ya.